Hello, welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this week's chapter of Punishment 2, Return of Amanda, by Olivia Julius. Brittany, Emily, and I sat in the middle of the room as the two girls started to show me how to properly stretch and get ready for the class. I looked over to one side of the room and saw my reflection in a large mirror that covered the far wall. I looked just like the other girls. The only difference between me and the girls around me was that I have a male brain. After this class is over, I will probably never wear this leotard again, and after Brittany's birthday party is finished tomorrow, I will probably never wear girls' clothes ever again. Most likely this leotard will sit in a box along with anything else that proves that I ever pretended to be Amanda. Slowly the wondering glances from the other girls from the class became too much for them and they started to come over and eventually all the girls started to sit in a circle around us. Jacob, the only boy that goes here, was the last to join us. I tried not to stare at him and opted to keep my eyes shifting on all the girls around me, only occasionally looking over to him. Jacob was wearing a pink male leotard. Around his waist and over the bottom of his leotard was a pair of white leggings. I half expected Jacob to act girly, maybe Jacob was transgender just like Emily was, but hearing him talk to the other girls about him starting football practice soon with a local traveling team. He talked about things that me and my friends at school would also talk about. Jacob truly was just a boy who did ballet. All my life I was taught not to defy the gender norms that were already established long before I was born. Boys are rough and brave, girls are timid and get into their feelings. Boys liked blue and girls liked pink, and if any boy dared wear a pink t-shirt in public, he was looked at weirdly by everyone he came across. Ballet was something that girls were only supposed to do. Boys are discouraged from attending these classes, instead we are programmed to like sports, and other manly stuff. Girls are gross, and if we hang around them then we are gross too. That's what I told my friends last year. Now that phrase is going through my head as I thought about this. Honestly, what are the differences between boys and girls if you boil away the stereotypes that we grew up with? I listened to the girls talk and tried to follow along with what they were saying. Most of it was that they were talking about the Easter fair at my aunt's house and that they were planning to go. They all kidded the other girls on how many rides they could ride before they threw up. When Brittany pointed out that Georgia was my aunt, they all looked at me and started to want to know why I wasn't at a lot of her fairs for. I began to nervously tell them that I lived in Indianapolis when the door to the classroom opened and a 40-something-year-old woman came in. Following her were two teenage girls. The two teen girls both are wearing identical black leotards and white tights. They are also wearing black ballet wrap skirts. Both girls made me jealous that they got to wear a skirt with their leotard. "Alright ladies and Jacob, to the bar quickly!" She clapped as she spoke. Everyone got up and quickly walked to the railing that was next to the large mirror. I followed both Brittany and Emily as they quickly went to the wall. Emily grabbed my arm and put me in front of her in the line and behind Brittany. "Do first position!" Brittany quietly whispered as I saw her from behind also doing first position. I did what she told me to do, making sure my toes are facing outwards and my arms are out like I am holding an invisible flower pot. I watched as Mrs. Polk looked at each girl as she carefully inspected them. In the reflection of the mirror, I could see everyone standing motionless like statues. I held in a deep breath as I hoped that Mrs. Polk wouldn't notice that I wasn't one of her girls. Mrs. Polk looked me over and then went to Brittany. I sighed in relief, but that was of course short-lived. Once Mrs. Polk was done inspecting the girls, she stood in front of us. I watched her as the two teenage girls talked softly behind Mrs. Polk, both were also doing first position. "Brittany, step out!" Mrs. Polk said. Brittany sidestepped one step out of line and resumed first position. Yes, Madam Polk. Brittany said respectfully. I see that you brought your friend to class. Care to introduce her? Brittany nodded her head and then stepped back to where I was standing, and she pulled me out of the line to stand next to her. I felt my cheeks redden as the eyes of the girls again fell on me. This is my friend Amanda, she is from Indianapolis, Indiana, and she is here for my birthday party tonight, Brittany said. I remained quiet, not sure what to say. Is this your first ballet class? Mrs. Polk asked. Yes, I said quietly. Mrs. Polk smiled a little, seemingly understanding why I was a little nervous for her. Amanda prefers to be more of a tomboy, Brittany said. I silently told myself to thank Brittany for not telling her teacher that I was a huge girly girl just like her. Mrs. Polk put her hands behind her back and started to walk to me. You will find, Ms. Amanda, ballet will release the feminine side of everyone who does it as long as they are receptive and open to the dance form. What if I don't have a feminine side? I asked. Everyone has a feminine side, for some girls it's laying on the surface, Brittany is a prime example, but for you I am going to guess that it is deep inside of you. This might amaze you, Amanda, but even boys have a feminine side that is hiding deep inside them. Take Jacob over there for example. It took a while for him to find it, he was kind of forced to be here several years ago because his twin sister wanted to try ballet out. Jacob hated the classes, he hated the leotards, but when he finally learned to see his feminine side, he learned to be able to let go and just relax. You want to know what the funny thing is, Amanda? What? I asked. His twin sister quit the next year because she didn't like it. To be honest, she didn't respond well to being in the class. Her tomboy side of her grew and she ended up dancing around like her head got chopped off. Too bad though, I really liked her. But Jacob has stayed, so I guess my efforts weren't totally in vain. So, the question I have for you, Ms. Amanda, are you ready to release your feminine side and dance like a swan in this class? Or are you going to keep your tomboy defenses up and dance like a turkey who's just flapping around? Like a swan? I said more as a question than as an answer. Mrs. Polk just smiled down at me. You'll understand soon, I promise, she said before standing upright. She clapped her hand twice and all the girls stood upright and resumed first position. Brittany stepped back into line, and I began to follow her, but Mrs. Polk stopped me. Stand back here with me, Amanda. Watch and learn something.